And what's happening is David HaMelech is running away. Why is he running away? You would think that maybe he would just stay put in his kingdom and let his officers, his army, fight off any rebellion. But the reason he's nervous is because he doesn't want Jerusalem to be a bloodbath. He doesn't want the people of Jerusalem to suffer because of him. And he figures that maybe he'll run away and see what happens with Avshalom. Is Avshalom trying to, take over completely? What is his real plans? And he's setting up spies to get information, intelligence, to find out what the real story is, because it's he knows that Avshalom is trying to be king, but to what extent? Where does he want David to be emeritus? Does he want him to just be give him honor? What is his plan? Now there is a thought that David is nervous that he might want to kill him, at least according to some commentaries. Now, why would Avshalom kill David? Because he can claim halachically that David is rebelling against Avshalom. So in other words, in truth, Avshalom is rebelling against his father David, and Avshalom deserves the death penalty for rebelling against the king. But there is a thought, at least that the commentaries understand, that Avshalom had this thought that maybe Avshalom is so convinced that he deserves to be king that David is rebelling against him. If David tries to start up with him, David deserves to die. And therefore, if David presents himself as a king, even if he doesn't start up, just presenting himself, just acting like a king, that's an act of rebellion against Avshalom. So therefore, there is a thought that maybe Avshalom wants to kill David. And he might have legal claims to that thought. There might be halachic understanding that maybe he thinks he's right. So there is such an opinion. There are other opinions that say, no, he didn't plan on killing David. He planned on making him retire early and just saying, you're getting old. It's time for you to retire. I am, I'm going to be king now. And this is at least, what we're seeing here. Again, the commentaries are all grappling to understand the specific plan between David and Avshalom and so on. And we're basically trying to figure it out based on the words, based on the Hebrew words, to get a feel of what was going on in David's mind. Now, one of the commentaries says, verse 16 mentioned that David went by foot. The king left, and his household went with him. And the Hebrew word in verse 16 is the king and his household went with him biraglov. Now, biraglov literally means by foot. Now, some of the commentaries say that biraglov doesn't mean literal over here. It's more to be taken as meaning that they went with him. His household people went with him. Imai. That's the some of the commentaries explain it that way. However, one of the commentaries, the Ralbag, says that it actually means he went by foot, and the reason was he wanted to run away without making a big commotion. He wanted it to look like he's still there in the palace, and so he went by foot. Now, one of the things he does is he starts telling people to go back. Who is he telling to go back? Well, number one is he wants the the Gittites tells Ittai. Let me mute everyone. There's noise over here. Not sure. Let me mute everyone. Okay, that should help. There's this Gittite group that the commentaries also struggle with who are the Gittites from the city of Gas. There is a city now called Kiryat Gat in Israel. It's very possible this is the same city. These are here the commentaries mention that maybe it's a group based on a Gemara. Maybe it's a group of Goyim from Gas that were impressed with David HaMelech, and they want to go along with David, and they want to travel with him. They're his supporters. They believe in him. They're really convinced that David is a holy, righteous guy, and they want to be with David. David is leaving. They're leaving with him, and David convinces them, no, you people go back to with the king. You're a Nachri. Nachri means a stranger, could mean a guy. And you could go back to your hometown, return to your place. So what exactly is David telling them? Rashi says over here that David is nervous. When you have a big group of people traveling with no plan and no food, it's going to be a hassle trying to attain all their needs. And it's going to be easier attaining the needs of the Jewish people than if you have some Goyim coming along. Where are you going to send them for the Shabbos meal? Where are you sending the Goyim group? In other words, it's going to be harder to fundraise because, people are going to open their doors. Some people are going to open their doors. Your Jewish, these are your cousins. These are your relatives. It's your family. You open your doors. Another Jewish person needs a meal. You open your doors. The Goyim, the Jews, are not so running to open their doors for the non-Jews who have the whole, who they don't sort of feel so connected to. And it's going to be hard to fundraise for them. It's like David is a little concerned that even though he likes them a lot, they're very supportive of him, but at the same time, he is nervous that not everyone else will feel the same way. Again, most people like to give charity to their own community, and rightfully so. You're more obligated to give to your own community than you are to another community. If you have poor people in your community, you should be supporting your community. If you have relatives that are poor, you should really support your relatives. There is a responsibility to help out your people. I'm going to be finished soon, okay? I'm going to be finished soon. So the fact is that obviously we care about the rest of the world. In fact, there's a big mitzvah to tikkun olam and do things that are humanitarian. But at the same time, you have to understand that fundraising, if David is in this, and he's been there before. David has been there and done that before. He's been stuck in these situations where he's got a lot of people to provide for, and he doesn't know how many people are on his side. And he doesn't know, and it's not going to be easy to get people to want to support all these outsiders. So he tells the Gittites, and interestingly so, he tells them, you people really should join Avshalom. Like, I'm not going to be taking you. I don't know who Hashem wants to be king here. You're in a dangerous situation. You might want to just go and stick here with Avshalom, and you'll be fine. Avshalom is not going to suspect you of being a traitor, and you'll be with him. That was the first thing he says, Shev im hamelach, stay with the king. You might, maybe for you people shouldn't really be coming with me. You people, it's good enough. You don't have to, it's very nice. You're helping out the Jewish people, but I don't know if you need to join my side. You'll be here with the Jewish people and it's good, which is really surprising that he's telling him this. But we do have an understanding, at least the way Rashi's explaining it. It's going to be, it's going to be hard for him to find them support, to get them everything they need. And there's also this point that he says, you just arrived, which sounds like they had a long trip to get there, and he doesn't want to take them. And he also says this other point that I don't even know where I'm going. We're just going to be walking around. We don't have a plan. We are people without a plan. David didn't really have a clear plan. Of course, wherever Hashem directs our steps, Hamechin Metzadei Gover. But Hashem is, directing the steps of man. But it's not like, it's I'm taking you on a run where we really don't, there's no end in sight. And so that's one way understanding it, that they're non-Jews. The other option is that simply they are a group of Yidden that lived in Gas. This is the way the Radak learns, that Lafi Daiti says, according to my understanding, they're Yisraelim. They were Jewish people that lived in Gas, and they came to help out David. And David basically is convincing them that because it's going to be a long travel, maybe it's better if you people you might want to just stay here and stick, stay put, and we'll see what happens. And so what's happening here is also that David is understanding this all as a punishment, and he's not really sure. It seems like, what the ultimate end is. Is this basically, is he losing the kingship? There is such a thought. Again, David did some type of sin. It's unclear, it's unclear to David to what extent the punishment is going to be. So he is a little nervous that he might lose at least the kingship himself. Now, there is some type of a promise that we saw before, that the kingship will always stay in his family. But that doesn't mean that he might not lose it for a certain amount of time. Now, there is an interesting point also, that one of the calculations that we had earlier on miscalculated by 6 months. And it said that David was king, and it did not count in a certain 6-month period. And so one of the commentaries wants to say that maybe this is those 6 months that possibly David is not a king. He actually lost it for 6 months. Very surprising to say such a thing, that he would lose the category as being king. And possibly Avshalom, is, because of his rebellion, it's causing David to lose this term king. And maybe that's why it only mentions the 40 years and doesn't mention the extra 6 months. So this is there is such a commentary, such a understanding based on again this idea that David is running away from his palace, and he is he's unsure about the future. He's unsure about his kingship, and there is such a possibility that he's even unsure that he might get killed. Now, so we have the Gittites, and then the other story is the story of the Kohanim, the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol also is coming along with the Ark of the Covenant, and David tells them, I think you guys should go back. And this is another idea that we're seeing here, that David feels that where is the covenant, where's the ark supposed to be placed? Supposed to be in Jerusalem. And David feels wrong taking the ark with him, even though it was often taken to war. But he says this is now it's meant to be in Yerushalayim. They don't have a Beis Hamikdash yet. The temple wasn't built yet. We're still, King Solomon built the temple later on. That's King David's son. But King David had set up a tent for the ark, and it was set up in Jerusalem already. It's already been established, so to speak, there, as that's where it's going to be. And David sees this as this is the place where the ark should be. At least this is what it seems like here. And that's why David doesn't want to take the ark with him. He says, if I deserve to get back and be with the ark, I will. And if I don't deserve, then that's it. It'll be with Avshalom. That's what's meant. So David sort of sees that he might be deserving of a bigger punishment, and he is allowing time to tell, so to speak. Of course, he's trying to find out from the Urim V'Tumim. He's asking the Kohen to put in a request. In fact, he does. In one of the Kohen Gadol doesn't get answered. So David asks the other Kohen from the other family. You see, Aaron had two sons that lived. Nadav and Avihu passed away. And Elazar and Isamar lived. And there is two Kohens here. One of them comes from Elazar and the other one comes from Isamar. And we know Pinchas was the famous, right? Pinchas was from Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron. Pinchas was from Elazar. And Eli came, Eli HaKohen came from one of these sides. And when Eli sinned by not rebuking his children, his sons, so then the curse came, and Hashem said that Eli HaKohen's family is going to lose the high priesthood. It's going to end up going to the other family. And so it jumped back and forth. Basically, Eli, because of his sin and his son, mainly his son's sins, and because Eli didn't rebuke them, that caused that they're going to lose their high priesthood. The thing is that they didn't lose it right away. So the question is, when exactly is that taking place? So David has this feeling now that if the Kohen Gadol is not being answered, it must be that now is the time that Eli, the curse that was supposed to fall upon Eli, is now taking place. And so now the priesthood, David tries the other Kohen, Tzadok. So now it goes from Evyasar to Tzadok, and Tzadok actually is answered. Now the only thing is, we don't know what they asked. We don't know what the question was that was asked to the Urim V'Tumim, which is the high priest asks a certain question, and Hashem answers it by the letters of the breastplate shining. When those letters shine, he's able to read some word that will be an answer to the question. So we don't know what the question was or the answer, but we do have a teaching here that there was a question that was asked, and the high priest did not get the answer. And then David tried the other potential high priest, who was at some point it's supposed to be given over to the new high priest, and that the new high priest seemed to get the right answer. Now we do know that the new high priest didn't get anointed until King Solomon's time. But at this point, we see that the curse has taken effect on the old high priest. Yes, Moshe. Moshe? You're muted. Moshe, I don't know if you're still there.
Yes, I wanted to ask, was Pinchas really a Kohen until he killed Zimri? I understand that he wasn't the Kohen until he killed Zimri in the village there for having relations with a Moabite woman. I mean, he wasn't.
Right. So Pinchas himself initially was born before the priesthood was given to his father and grandfather, so therefore he wasn't born into it. But in the end, he got it anyway. So now that whole family is priests. Okay, so the verse tells us about the Urim, the Kresi and Plesi, the archers and the slingers. This is verse 18, and it tells us that they came along with David. And as I mentioned, that there are different opinions of who these are. One opinion is that it was a group of archers and slingers. They were very good they had a specialty field in fighting wars. But there is another explanation that we mentioned, that it refers to the Sanhedrin, and this is mentioned by the Ralbag. He brings this, that this refers to the Sanhedrin that went along with David. Now, so although we mentioned that Avshalom had many great rabbis joined him, and he used a trick to get them to join him, but they weren't the top notch. The Sanhedrin was actually with David. I did want to mention that one of the issues that David had was, what do the people think about his sin with Bathsheba? Meaning, David has an understanding that he thinks that he's been forgiven, but there will be punishments. But what do the people think? How bad do they think his sin was? Do they see him as a adulterer, a murderer? If they do, then there is a chance that the people might want to go along with Avshalom, because they might feel, and they might get convinced, that David is very wicked, and chas v'shalom to say such a thing, but they might think that, and Avshalom is very, he's very sly and shrewd, and knows how to convince people. And so there's a chance that, Avshalom is winning people over. And people might think that David is a sinner, and Avshalom can always get away. See, Avshalom, interestingly enough, he gets other people to do his dirty work. So he had other people kill Amnon. He didn't physically kill Amnon. He had his helpers kill Amnon. So he could always get away with, he has different ways, because he never signs any of the papers. He has other people signing the papers. So when it goes to court, they get caught. And he always, presents himself as, I have nothing to do with that. So he seems to, he knows the legalities of it. He knows how to get other people to do everything for him, gives them enough money and buys them off. And then he basically, and he's also knows how to convince them and manipulate them. And then he basically has he might have a huge following. I mean, we know he has a following. The question is how huge it is. So that's where we are holding here. And I think it's important to understand that, to get a feel of how David is feeling in this situation. Now, David tells Sadok, he says, Haraya Ata, do you agree with my plan to send back the ark to Jerusalem? And one of the meanings of Haraya Ata is that the Haraya Ata, you are a Raya, a Navi, you are a prophet. And this is brought in the Targum Yonasan, one of the commentaries, that he says, because Vaya'at Tuv Lakarta, you are a Navi, you are a prophet that has Ruach HaKodesh. In other words, David is telling Sadok, you're a real Kohen Gadol now. In other words, he hadn't been anointed, but he says, you see prophecy, you have Shechina, you have the divine presence resting with you, and you should return. In this way, you'll be able to maybe tell me things from your vision. You are a roya, you are a seer. So in other words, the word haraya atta could mean, do you agree with me? Or it could mean you are a roya, a seer. And this means that David was saying that you have this prophetic vision and spirit, and better if you go back to be with the ark and stay there. Also, stay there in Jerusalem and find out information. Now, what David HaMelech is doing here is he's getting many people also to hang out in Yerushalayim to be able to provide info and intelligence when he needs it. And who does he send now? So in addition to sending the high priest and the potential high priest, and he sends the two sons. He sends Achimaaz and Yonasan. Achimaaz is Sadek's son, and Yonasan is Avyasar's son. He sends the two sons of the high priest and the potential high priest, or the was high priest and the future high priest, the past high priest and the future high priest, and their job will be to travel back and forth and give me information. So he's trying to set up a group of people that will provide the intelligence for his escape, and the surprising thing here is David doesn't say he cried when it says the rest of the people cried. In verse 23, it mentions the entire land was crying in a loud voice, but doesn't mention about King David. And then in verse 30, it says David was going up on the ascent of the Mount of Olives, crying as he ascended with his head wrapped and going barefoot. And all the people with him wrapped their heads and went up crying as they ascended. So here David is crying. What all of a sudden happened now that everyone is crying? So what we see from the verses is that all of a sudden, after the ark is returning to the city of Jerusalem, now David feels isolated. He feels that he doesn't have the ark with him. Now is when he's really crying. He's not where he should be. He doesn't have the ark. And so when everyone else was crying, he didn't feel it. But now that he sent the ark back, and he sent it back because he wanted it to go back. He wanted the ark to be in Jerusalem, which is a very important element here, that you sort of have to read it between the lines. That's what it's implying, that he really wants the ark to be in Jerusalem. So he's very convinced and strong in his view that Jerusalem is the place where the ark must be. But at the same time, it's very painful to him that he's now running away and he's not going to be with the ark. The ark is not going to accompany him. And at this point, I will hand over the mic to Rabbi